morning, everyone. Here in the Zendo with me, I have Joe and Glenn and Aaron and Chris and Jill. And on Google Meet, I have Ranigan, John, and Mark. So welcome, everyone. We're going to do something a little different this morning than the way we've been doing Jukai. Dean asked me to prepare the lesson a little different and to start with more of the verses at a time. So I'm going to be taking larger chunks of the verses and talking about them. I thought what we would do, I've prepared it this way this time, and I will prepare it next time the same way. After which, if people feel like they want to go back to the old way, we can do that. So we'll see how this goes and see whether you like this better or the other way. So let's chant in. An unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Having it to see and listen to remember and accept, I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's words. Okay, so starting with, yes, it's recording. There's a thing over here that says stop recording, so I'm assuming they are. So, in the way of the Bodhisattva, we're going to start today at verse 112 of chapter 6. We'll finish up chapter 6 today and get into chapter 7. But what I'm going to read is verse 112 to 118. And so the mighty sage has spoken of the field of beings, as well as of the field of conquerors. Many who brought happiness to beings have passed beyond, attaining to perfection. Thus, the state of Buddhahood depends on beings and on Buddhas equally. What kind of practice is it then that honors only Buddhas, but not beings? Not in the qualities of their minds, but in the fruits they give, are they alike. In beings too, such excellence resides, and therefore beings and Buddhas are the same. Offerings made to those with loving minds reveal the eminence of living beings. Merit that accrues from faith in Buddha shows in turn the Buddha's eminence. Although not one of them is equal to the Buddhas, who are oceans of perfection, because they have a share in bringing forth enlightenment, beings may be likened to Buddhas. If of such a gathering of supreme excellence, a tiny part appeared in certain beings, the three worlds made an offering to them would be a very little thing. Since there lies in beings a share in bringing forth the supreme and enlightened state, by virtue of this parity alone, it's right that I should reverence them. Any thoughts before we go from there? Yes, Ranigan.
There is one of those verses, verse 117, that I'm hoping you can elaborate on, because I didn't understand it.
Okay. I think this entire section is actually arguing and talking for the fact that Buddhas and unenlightened beings are the same. That even though an unenlightened being isn't perfected yet, they can become our way to become enlightened. And as such, they deserve our respect, and they deserve for us to see them as deserving of the same kind of holding them in the same way that we would hold a Buddha. That's the essential message of this. Go ahead.
Okay, this is kind of funny, but when you announced getting ready for the Dharma talk, in the captions it said "getting ready for Donald Trump."
Well, there could be some truth in that, I suppose.
Which brings some unpleasantness to mind for me. And Dean had talked about we need to be in samsara to get to awakening, and that awakening is interlinked with samsara. And
yes.
At times I'm not, the samsara gets to be overwhelming. And I just would like you to talk about that a little bit.
Yes. It does. I think it does for all of us. I mean, I know certainly you're not unique in that, because I certainly have that. And I know we all feel overwhelmed with it at sometimes. And that's probably the very time we need to shut up, sit down, and just be present with whatever is there and try and sort it out. I mean, it's the only thing that I know to do with it at those times, that I've figured out to do with it. And using what we know, just using Zazen, using it to sit with those times when we feel overwhelmed. And just acknowledging we feel overwhelmed.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other thoughts, Harold?
I just had a quick thought about when she said it's samsara sometimes seems overwhelming. I thought if samsara were easy, would it really be samsara?
True.
I think that's the nature of samsara, it's overwhelming.
Can be. That at times that's your reaction to samsara.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that has to be what we're talking about in the teachings here is, how do we react to that? What do we see there? How do we get by that? I mean, we're going to feel overwhelmed from time to time, but I think the teaching is that isn't how we have to feel all the time. That we can, in fact, come to terms with the feeling, the understanding that the feeling is just a feeling of being overwhelmed. It's not really any more than that. And that we all feel it.
Well, we're talking a very dualistic thing here because it's all a matter of opinion, which is all empty. It's whether you are talking about samsara or nirvana. It's this versus that. It's two worlds. It's heaven and hell, and it's none of that. It's all empty of that. So.
And it's all of that.
And it's all of that.
That's the part that leaves me kind of shaking my head is just that. It's none of that, and it's all of it. It's all and everything. It's just this. It's what's right in front of us. And if being overwhelmed is this, then that's what this is.
I'm a question for you. Whenever I think of samsara and nirvana, I take a universal approach rather than a personal approach. I think of the whole world, all the suffering going on the planet, which is ongoing, it doesn't stop. And all the people everywhere trying to do whatever people try to do to make themselves happy and joyful, whether they know that or not. And I'm thinking that's samsara, as opposed to just my situation sitting here. But I guess it's just two different ways of looking at samsara.
Well, you're part of that whole too.
Right.
And I think one of the things that can get lost, and it was to a point it was getting lost for me recently, is you can look at samsara, as you were saying, universally. I shouldn't use the word universally, but in the sense of everything. But it has a powerful impact on us personally. The one that I saw as I started to understand how much all of the anger that's going on out there that I was partly engaged in, I understood what it's doing to me. That's samsara right here, in addition to what it's doing to the world. And I think we have to look at both of those. Because we're part of that universe, that samsara it's not just out there. It's right in here, and it's doing stuff to us. And some of the stuff we're going to talk today about touches on that a bit. So, but it's I guess it's the one thing about Zen that I continue to see, which is every time I get really involved on one side, something comes up to remind me, oh yeah, there's this over here. And whether that's, the feeling of the absolute and the relative, or whether that's, this idea, like I said, of samsara as it affects the entire world, or samsara as it affects me personally, and what it's doing to me and what its response may be. So it's that constant shifting back and forth and balance, I think, that's there.
I think when I was thinking of the entire world and all the people, I did separate myself out somehow as an observer. And like you said,
that's defense.
I forgot to include myself there.
That's how we defend ourselves.
Yep.
We don't, look at all those people over there. But it's not me. Yeah, I was going to say been there, done that. Am there doing that, so. Any other comments? And let me tell you what the commentary said about this section. Shantideva is saying that bringing forth the enlightened state is dependent on both Buddhas and unenlightened beings. He's saying that even though unenlightened beings do not share the perfections of Buddhas, they are worthy of the same veneration. He supports this by reasoning that by making other beings happy through their practice of love and compassion, they attained Buddhahood. When we hold other beings as the subject of our practice, whether the practice is generosity, patience, compassion, or loving kindness, they become the cause of our enlightenment and thus deserve the same veneration as the Buddhas. Shantideva comments that we interact with unenlightened beings far more frequently than with Buddhas, giving us far more opportunities to practice, and that the smallest bit of merit, the first recognition of bodhicitta, the slightest willingness to enter the Bodhisattva path, make us worthy of offerings as Buddhas. Everyone shares in bringing forth the supreme state of Buddhahood. That's what we were just talking about. If everybody shares in it, then everybody deserves credit for it, merit for it. Any other thoughts about this before we move on? Yeah, Chris.
Yeah, I'm pretty uncomfortable with the whole way that Shantideva is going here because this is a very ancient text that I think predates Zen. So the problem here is the great emphasis on enlightenment versus not enlightened. Some beings enlightened, some not. In Zen, what we practice is enlightenment. Enlightenment is right here, right now. It's awareness. So separating out people who are enlightened and unenlightened just creates unnecessary dualities. And I think that Buddhist thought sort of developed further after this was written.
Yeah.
So we in Zen we don't really particularly emphasize enlightenment.
I absolutely agree. This is, I mean, what I see in this as, just as you were saying, is the development of Zen thought between Shantideva and Dogen.
Yeah.
The Shantideva is still keeping us pretty separate, whether we're enlightened or not. By the time we get to Dogen, he says, well, maybe it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, everyone has Buddha nature. Everything is Buddha nature. So
Yep.
There's no distinction.
Yeah, I think he's, in a way, a step back from that. And that's been one of the things that, we talk about this not being a dogmatic religion. And this is one of the things that's been very helpful to me, is to see that it can change over time.
Yeah.
And I think we have a piece of it right here. Yeah, Glenn.
I think one way to look at it, right, that duality, enlightened and unenlightened, is to look at it as, rather than that duality, the people who are unenlightened are merely ignorant of their own Buddha nature, and they just need to be awakened. And so that's not a fault. That's just a condition of being in this world. And so that's nothing that should be a hierarchy or something that we should judge. So I think that's another way of like interpreting this text in through a different lens. It's like, okay, unenlightened, that just means that the veil hasn't been lifted. That you haven't wiped away the cobwebs of delusion and ignorance to recognize, that we're all interdependent and we're all the same.
I think the other thing is we see Dogen's teaching starting here. He's saying, you as an unenlightened being deserve just as much recognition as a Buddha. So he's starting to put us on that same level. I think Dogen takes that and then runs with it. So
The very first verse that you read, what was it, 112? 112 says many who brought happiness to beings. Whoops, not 112. I'm at 113. What kind of practice is it then that honors only Buddhas and not beings? I'm thinking of all the other religions of the world who just praise the hell out of God.
Yeah.
Forget about everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of those out there right now. Yeah. I mean, it's the difference in somehow, I think, believing that, man is basically flawed, and somebody or something had to come in and bonk you on the head and fix you, versus the idea that, you got all this stuff in there, you just need to figure out it's there and do something with it. I like that second approach a whole lot better than the first one. And yeah, Ranigan.
Well, I have to laugh because I've been remembering when I was a young Catholic, and on Good Friday, I thought that I had to get a lot of people out of purgatory. And I spent the entire day in church reciting ejaculations, is what they were called, and feeling that I was getting thousands of people out of there. And it's such a relief to and
Not bear that burden anymore.
7 hours on Good Friday I was in church. But the wonderful thing about Buddhism is it gives so much wisdom. It shares so much wisdom.
Yeah, I agree.
That we're not flawed. We're just unaware at times in our lives, right?
Indeed.
You've been absolved.
Father Mark.
Thank you, Father Mark.
Thank you, Father Mark.
Or should I say Father Shenmine? Okay. Well, let's see what we have next here. We're going to do 119 to 127. Whoops. The Buddhas are my true, unfailing friends. Boundless are the benefits they bring me. How else may I repay their goodness but by making living beings happy? By helping beings, we repay the ones who sacrifice their lives for us and plunge into the hell of unrelenting pain. Should beings therefore do great harm to me, I'll strive to bring them only benefit. For those who have become my lords at times took care not even of their bodies. Why should I, a fool, behave with such conceit? Why should I not become the slave of others? Buddhas are made happy by the joy of beings. They sorrow, they lament when beings suffer. By bringing joy to beings, then, I please the Buddha also. By wounding them, I wound the Buddhas also. Just as there's no sensual delight to please the mind of one whose body burns in fire, there is no way to please the great compassionate ones while we ourselves are causes of another's pain. The damage I have done to beings saddens all the Buddhas in their great compassion. Therefore, all these evils I confess today and pray that they will bear with my offenses. That I might rejoice the Buddha's hearts, henceforth I will be master of myself, the servant of the world. I shall not seek revenge, though crowds may trample on my head or kill me. Let the guardians of the world rejoice. The great compassionate lords consider as themselves all beings. There's no doubt of this. Those whom I perceive as beings are Buddhas in themselves. How can I not treat them with respect? This very thing is pleasing to the Buddha's hearts and perfectly secures the welfare of myself. This will drive away the sorrows of the world, and therefore it will be my constant work. Did that rattle anybody's cage any? Anybody got any comments?
I think verse 121 kind of contradicted 113 now.
Yeah, I think Rannigan's got to get back to work.
As you wish, Father Mark.
In 121, he says, why should I, a
Yeah.
fool? It's like now you're once again just dirt under God's feet.
Yeah, well, I read that as simply reinforcing the idea
Mm-hmm.
that, there are those things that, and those people that stand in our way. And the idea is not to stand, to be able to be the Bodhisattva in that case, to be able to use skillful means. And in some cases, I mean, he uses the extreme of being a slave, but I don't know that I agree with that exactly, but there are certainly some things.
I'm trying to feel what the lesson is here about patience, which is this chapter.
Yep. Some of this, in fact, is interestingly enough about paying back. It's about paying back not just our teachers and the ancestors, but everyone and everything that has given us, and the word I'm going to use is our Dharma privilege. We're here in this Dharma position today for lots of reasons, and they're amazingly complex ones that brought all of us here. In terms of all the interactions that we've had, positive and negative, with other people, also all the biological and physical interactions that got us here. And what he's saying is we need to be grateful for those things, and we need to pay back by being good bodhisattvas. And he says, the primary, or Pima says, actually, the primary way that we can show gratitude to the Buddhas and teachers for this opportunity is by treating each other with loving kindness. While our teachers enjoy kindness and generosity, it is our practice of their teaching that brings them joy. And conversely, when they see us purposely cause others to suffer, it causes them pain. When we acknowledge the pain that we have caused ourselves and others without resorting to guilt or justification or blame, our sadness can be healing. And we repay the kindness of our friends and teachers. He again reminds us that all sentient beings are Buddha's very self. Going back to what Chris was talking about here, he sets that up, but he's certainly starting along that pathway of it's all one. Trungpa Rinpoche referred to this teaching as basic goodness. We can interact with each other in a way that connects us with this basic wisdom or in a way that obscures it. Instead of triggering each other's aggression, we can pause and allow the space for everyone to experience their soft spot. In the end, the best thing we can do for our teachers, ourselves, and the world is to think about benefiting rather than harming one another. Kunzang Peldon says, even if sentient beings do great damage to our wealth and happiness, we should interpret it in the best light, in the same way we would our teachers' actions. He spends a good deal of time in his commentary reminding us that Buddhas and sentient beings are one and the same, and therefore Buddhas could not exist without sentient beings and vice versa. So, again, we're getting that part. It's pulling all of that together. Any other thoughts on this part? Chris?
Yeah, just part of my reaction to it is just that I think it's kind of getting dangerously close to making Buddhas, deifying Buddhas, that there's some sort of supernatural being. And again, this is very early thought, and and all of that, but that's kind of uncomfortable for me. He's kind of, I'm this person, but there's these great Buddhas, and I have to, please them by what I do, and it's just so.
Well, and yet, I hear what you're saying. I'm not arguing with that. But at one, I want to go back to. It actually says Buddhas and sentient beings are one and the same. So
what are Buddhas?
I hear it. Well, we'll try and keep the Buddhas in closer to us. Not put them on the altar. Anything else? Well, we got one of them. What can I say?
Yeah, the Nichiren's wouldn't. They don't allow Buddhas in their zendos for that, because they're concerned about worshiping them. Yeah.
Aaron.
I have a question that kind of goes back to what Chris was talking about earlier about the difference between like the Zen understandings of like Buddha nature being in everything and kind of enlightenment already being kind of there and like available to everyone. Is that like a Zen across the board understanding, or is that Soto Zen specifically?
I'm sorry, can you just ask me that one more time? I'm not sure I
Um,
understood exactly.
Just the sort of like the Zen understanding that Chris was talking about earlier,
Hmm.
where like Buddha nature is in everything and there's
Mhm.
not really like a separation between enlightened and unenlightened beings. I'm just kind of curious, is that like a general Zen understanding, or is that like, because my understanding is like that's like the Soto Zen understanding, like that's kind of what we practice. But like, don't the Rinzai people like they do stuff to try to like become enlightened? Like they
Yeah.
do stuff with like koans and like I don't know.
It's a good question. You may want to ask Dean that a bit
Okay.
more. My experience, fortunately and unfortunately, comes from Zen Mountain. And Zen Mountain, Daido Lori and his teacher, both of them were both transmitted to in Soto and Rinzai.
Okay.
So at Zen Mountain, it was very clear that Dogen was the man.
Yeah.
Now, whether that came through the Soto part of it or whether equally through Soto and Rinzai, I don't know.
Dogen didn't really care for the distinction between Soto and Rinzai, right? Like he was kind of like, well, whatever. But
Yeah,
is my
well,
understanding. But I feel like there is like a difference in how Soto Zen understands enlightenment and like awakening versus like the Rinzai tradition. I think that they don't necessarily think. Oh, I don't know if they don't.
I don't
know about the Buddha nature being in everything, but they definitely. I think we differ in the lineages with how we think about enlightenment. I think in Soto, my understanding is that in Soto Zen, we kind of are like enlightenment is always there.
Mhm.
And I think in the Rinzai tradition, they're like trying to do specific stuff to reach enlightenment, and that's like kind of a fundamental difference.
And whether that's, I'm not sure that that's true. I'm not sure that what you're referring to is not more Theravadan versus Mahayana.
Weren't there originally like the North and the South schools in China? The Sudden Enlightenment versus the...
Yeah. I mean, all of this goes back to that, I'm sure. I'm not enough of a student of the development of the thought to know, but clearly, at least as I look at it, that whole thing with the Northern and Southern schools is kind of what then becomes combined. There is no Northern or Southern school. There is just this, and we see that in the...
I think we're going to cover that in our next book for Thursday nights on Sandokai.
Yep.
Can I read one sentence?
Sure.
The primary difference between Rinzai and Soto Zen lies in their practice methods. Rinzai uses koans, which are paradoxical riddles, to achieve sudden enlightenment, while Soto focuses on shikantaza, just sitting, as a continuous, gradual expression of enlightenment, period.
Thank you.
I mean, it's a good description of the difference. I'm not sure it answers your question, though, exactly.
I think it does, because like our practice is just sitting, and like we think that enlightenment is always here and it's always possible to like access it. Whereas in the Rinzai tradition, they do have specific practices to try to like touch it in like a more intense or like specific way. And I think like we think of it differently too. Like I think I feel like I've heard Ben Connolly talk about this, like that in Soto Zen, we kind of like don't specifically choose to like become really like enlightened in like kind of self-oriented way, but we kind of like are just trying to cultivate the awareness of the enlightenment that is there, kind of thing.
The one, see, I'm not sure, and what I was referring to and what I said to you is, I'm not sure the difference is only our practice.
Yeah.
That in fact, Rinzai doesn't, let me say it the other way around, that Rinzai does in fact believe the same things that we believe in terms of Buddha nature, and that we all have Buddha nature, and it's just how to get there.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that that's true, and that's why I would encourage you to pursue that a bit more with Dean, because I'm not certain about that. But that, based on my experience of the two places, like I say, which is distorted a bit because they're both Rinzai and Soto at Zen Mountain Monastery. But I'm not, I didn't have any sense with the years that I worked with those folks that there was a lot of difference in that basic belief. And that may be my own ignorance. So I will put that out front.
Thank you.
I almost feel like we'd be better off doing away with the word enlightenment and just substituting something like awareness or awakened or greater understanding. Any of those things I think would be, because you have the sense of enlightenment as you enter it and then you're in it, and we know that that's not the case. And it might have been for Buddha as it was described, but I have never met anyone who was enlightened, and I haven't met that many teachers, but the one that I respect the most, Shahako Okamura, has been practicing his whole life in Japanese, and clearly a very devout man, and he clearly says, "I'm not enlightened." So I think we can have awakening and understanding, and I think we change over time as a result of our practice, and practice is enlightenment, if you want to say that, but I just like awareness or awakening, or those kinds of things better.
There's a line that we did not too long ago. I don't remember where. It may have been in Ben Conley's book or Busho's book, one of the two. Buddhas often don't know they're Buddhas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that meshes with what you're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we should just call it Bob. Have you gotten to Bob yet? No.
It seems like the way we talk about it, it seems like the only barrier between myself and enlightenment at this point is death.
Mm.
Like, you have to go so far beyond where we're at, wherever you're at, that it's not possible as long as you're a living being.
Mm.
Joe,
That's the feeling I get about enlightenment. It's like
the only barrier to enlightenment, Joe, is you.
I can't blame it on somebody.
Don't we all want to?
I just feel kind of implicit in the term enlightenment, at least in the way we have known it maybe in Western culture or something, like that it is something you attain.
Right. Oh, and I think
that's available.
That's certainly, I don't think that's different in Eastern culture, especially at the beginning of Buddhism.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty clear in the Theravadan tradition. You're going after something.
Is Shantideva part of that tradition, or is that early Mahayana?
Shantideva is early Mahayana, and is part of the Tibetan tradition, I believe, or
So,
I can stand to be corrected if he's Indian, but I believe he's like one of the early Tibetan folks.
Okay, thank you.
Um,
Yes, the very first paragraph, sentence in the forward. The Indian scholar Shantideva, renowned in Tibet as one of the most reliable teachers.
okay. So he was that bridge between India and Tibet, probably. Um, okay. Yeah, Rennigan.
This brings to mind for me when we're talking about enlightenment that, or just awareness, is that we have moments of it and then we're back. And then you have other moments. And I think nature is so helpful in reminding us of this. And that book, which I'm still reading a bit at a time, Braiding Sweetgrass, which is so astounding in the way she brings it all forward, how in nature that type of awareness is so incredible. And it's at times we get to that, and then Robin Wall Kimmerer's, and then we're back here again. So it's moment by moment.
Yep. Certainly, it absolutely is. And I think that's the one thing that I hear over and over again is there's good times and not so good times. You know, one of the quotes not that long ago was, you sit in meditation and, you know, sometimes it's wonderful and other times it's hell. And that's not a direct quote, but that's what it said. And certainly true. Certainly true. And both are enlightenment and both are samsara. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Let's look at the next set here. 128 to 134 is what I'm going to read. And that will finish up chapter 6. Imagine that the steward of a king does injury to multitudes of people. Those with clear, far-seeing eyes do not respond with violence, even if they can. For stewards, after all, are not alone. They are supported by the kingly power. Therefore, I will not despise the feeble beings tormenting me. Their allies are the guardians of hell, and also the compassionate Buddhas. Therefore, living beings I will gratify, and subjects might, as subjects might placate a wrathful king. And yet, the pains of hell to be endured through making living beings suffer, could these ever be unleashed on me by all the ire of such a king? And even if the king were pleased, enlightenment he could not give me, for this will only be achieved by bringing happiness to beings. No need to mention future Buddhahood, achieved through bringing happiness to beings. How can I not see that glory, fame, and pleasure, even in this life, will likewise come? For patience in samsara brings such things as beauty, health, and good renown. Its fruit is great longevity, the vast contentment of a universal king. Let me start with you. Any thoughts? Okay. Well, let me see what the text says. I mean, what the commentary says helps. Shantideva is approaching the end of the chapter on patience and continues to stress to us that it makes no sense to give in to the impulse of aggression. He points out again that our actions have karmic consequences, and as our aggressive mind grows stronger, the world appears increasingly hellish. I'll stop there just for a second to go back to what I was saying about, what does anger do to you? This is one of the things it does. It makes the world appear worse. Joe, you were going to add something to that?
Yeah, I just couldn't help but look at this as a metaphor for what's going on today, right here in this country, while you were reading. All of it.
Mm-hmm.
There's certainly that metaphor there.
Imagine that the steward of a king does injury to multitudes of people.
Certainly true today and multiple times through history, I'm sure. But yeah, I mean,
So many stewards.
I don't know. I'm having a hard time not getting angry at the stewards myself. I don't know about you.
Sorry, John.
But it's what he's telling us. They can only function because there is a king standing behind them. I'm not sure the king is Donald Trump this time, but there's somebody back there pulling strings. Anyhow, he tells us that getting irritated, even by minor things, increases our aggressiveness and has negative karma. He reminds us that even minor irritations, gossiping and slander, reinforce our negative mind. And conversely, catching these minor acts and responding skillfully, it is much easier to nip them in the bud. He asks, is there anyone who can cause us as much pain as we can cause ourselves by strengthening our negative mind? If we offend a king, he might imprison us or even kill us. But when our mind is seething with aggression towards another sentient being, it can feel like eternal hell. On the other hand, a king may give us a job or a material wealth, but bearing with all things and bringing pleasure and happiness to beings will ultimately bring us ultimate freedom and unshakable happiness. And lastly, he suggests that in fact, anger isn't good for our health and longevity and generally results in people not liking us. I'll simply add in there that medically we know that's true. The more you hold anger in, it eats away at you. We know it's strongly related to the people who experience that kind of anger typically will also experience heart disease. All of the studies that have been done seem to point in that same direction. So this is not only good for your spiritual health, it's good for your physical health and social health too, according to this. He again reminds us that both the guardians of hell and the compassionate Buddhas are our allies and can show us the potential consequences of our actions, both pain and pleasure, and motivate us to act wisely. And I'm simply going to add in here, the last sentence of Pema Chodron's commentary reminds us that this is a process. It takes time, and that when we relapse into aggression, it's important to be patient and tolerant of ourselves. And as she said before, not to lapse into guilt. Not that's not helpful. Guilt and self-recriminations and all of that, blaming yourself doesn't help any more than blaming somebody else. So it's just recognizing what's going on and owning it. So any thoughts on this piece?
Yeah, I just had the thought that we have to be careful, as Pima was pointing out, that we're human beings, and anger is just simply an emotion. And so emotions are not right or wrong; they just exist. So as Buddhists, we're aware of how we're feeling. So awareness of feeling. I'm angry, I'm irritated, and so forth. That's just part of being human. Of course, we can, as this chapter points out, we can develop our tolerance and our patience. The other problem I have with this is that anger and aggressiveness are not the same thing. So I can be angry and not be aggressive. So I think where the great harm comes in is when we hold on to that anger, as you pointed out. The difference between anger and resentment is that resentment is anger felt over and over and over again. We cultivate it. Just find your points there, but I think we just have to be careful about not judging ourselves. As people pointed out, if we are angry or irritated, I used to have this thought. I hope I was doing it humorously. I used to call it false Buddhist piety. And it was, you meet some people who are kind of, they have the stare and the look and they don't get angry or upset about anything. And I don't think that's what we're.
And you can see the smoke coming out of there.
Right. So that goes back to that whole idea of spiritual bypass, which is, using a spiritual practice, but you're not dealing with your stuff. So you're just, it's a facade to hide what's really going on inside. So Zen asks us to study the self and be aware of the self with small self, well, both selves, small and large. So.
Yeah, no, I think it's an extremely important point, because we are all going to feel anger a lot, particularly living in the time we do and espousing the values we do. But that's a feeling. And then that feeling is a reaction, and then we have to decide what to do with it, not just react. Not just, Aaron.
Kind of piggybacking off of what Chris was just saying. The first, the Zendo that I went to before I came here was practicing like Chan
Okay.
style of Buddhism, and I remember I went to like a half day sitting kind of a thing there, and we were going around after we had been like meditating for a while and just kind of giving some sort of feedback. And I just told my Shifu, I was like, my mind is really loud today, Shifu. And he was like, the mind is only loud when we are turning it up. And then I told that to my friend Nikki, who's also my acupuncturist, when I went to see her for an appointment. And she was like, oh, that's kind of a weird thing to say. She like wakes up in the morning. She's like, she does like the Theravada tradition, but she wakes up like super early and meditates for like hours every morning. It's like totally necessary for her mental stability. And so she was like, that's kind of a weird thing to say. Like when I'm sitting and my mind is loud, I just think my mind is loud.
Yes.
But I feel like the thing is, the difference is like having an awareness of if you're angry or there's like frustrations or things you're kind of, your mind wants to fixate on. To me, what has been helpful about the practice of Zazen is to like allow things that maybe give you like reactive feelings or that you feel pulled to fixate on in some way, but like to actually use that as a way to become less attached to your own pain.
Yeah, no, I think that's a wonderful point. Yeah, that's exactly right. It is what we're trying to do, at least, and succeed some of the time. Please, Joe.
Thank you for that. You just reminded me of, I was listening to Michael Pollan, his latest interview with Ezra Klein. And one of the things that really resonated with me was the phrase he said, something about... I'm sorry, that's oh, it's okay.
my phone.
Thoughts think themselves.
It'll stop in a second.
You don't have to think a thought. The thought thinks itself.
Yeah.
It just comes up. So
Yeah.
you don't have anything to say about it. It's like,
Yeah, that's the other thing that I feel like Zazen has helped me with too, is like understanding that like my thoughts aren't me. Like that's not actually like my mind. That's just like what mind does when you're not being aware of it.
so many things teach us that we should be able to control that.
I'm sorry, teach us that.
We should be able to control that, like control your thoughts. Like you shouldn't think that way, whatever. But again, thoughts think themselves. It just bubbles up. So you have to deal with it. And that's where I think our effort comes in, is you can either deal with it or you can ignore it. Bury it, which means it's going to fester and come up again and again. But
or amplify it and act on it with unskillful means.
Yes.
So, like you were saying about resentment, is just anger being recycled and refed. And
Yeah, I like the differentiation that you made, Chris, between anger and resentment. Because I spent a lot of my professional life explaining to people about their emotions, and that your emotions are reactions. You can't control that. You can control what you do with them, but you can't control having emotions. You can't control having those. They will come to you.
Nor should you want to. I mean, that's part of being human. And
it's like, absolutely.
Why should you try to fight something that's so inherently, manifesting?
Well, we basically,
it's a form of ignorance, is to think that, I'd rather not experience that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a denial of our interdependence, because, our ancient and twisted karma, right? This is the causes and conditions of that exist before us and will exist long after us. And, to think that we are capable of transcending that through willpower or whatever. Yet another door.
They tell us we can.
And not to be passive either. And not to be helpless, like, oh, I can't control it, so I'm just going to be the victim of this constant barrage of emotions. We have the tools.
We have, yeah. You
Yeah.
can, in fact, control it, just not by trying to control it. That's the irony of the thing.
This whole
When you-
culture's out. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
This whole culture's out there, like the British. They pride themselves on not showing emotion.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
really stuff it, and they are really uptight sometimes.
Well, there is a very funny comedy that's on. I can't tell you what it's on. It's called Very British Problems. And it is about that it's all of these little nuances of the British and what they do and how they operate. And it's very funny. They talk about it, but they just, how they would never do certain things. And it's very well done. I think it's on Amazon, but I'm not sure.
And we're sort of like that in some ways in our own society. Like I grew up in a world where men absolutely never cried. I mean,
Yep.
Dad would say, "You want to cry? I'll give you something to cry about."
Yep.
And I learned how to just turn it off as a 4-year-old. And when you start learning stuff like that young, it's hard to talk about emotions or just conversations that you should have later in life with important loved ones. You can't have because it's emotional, and you turn that off. So
Yeah,
you walk away.
because you can't acknowledge that emotion in yourself. That's true. It's true. If nothing else, we'll do a little bit of chapter 7, and that'll probably take care of us for the day. I'm going to do the first 14 verses, 1 to 14. Thus, with patience, I will strive with diligence. For in such diligence, enlightenment is found. If no wind blows, then nothing stirs, and neither is there merit without diligence. Diligence means joy in virtuous ways. Its contraries have been defined as laziness, an inclination for unwholesomeness, defeatism, and self-contempt. A taste for idle pleasure and a craving for repose and sleep. No qualms about the sorrows of samsara. Laziness indeed is born from these. Snared by the trapper of defiled emotion, enmeshed and taken in the toils of birth, again you've strayed into the maw of death. What is it? Have you still not understood? Don't you see how one by one death has come for all your kind? And yet you slumber on so soundly, like a buffalo beside its butcher. All the paths of flight are blocked. The Lord of death now has you in his sights. How can you take such pleasure in your food, and how can you delight to rest and sleep? Death will swoop on you so swiftly. Gather merit till that moment comes. For even if you then throw off your indolence, what will you do when there is no more time? This I have not done, and this I'm only starting. And this, I'm only halfway through. Then is the sudden coming of the Lord of Death. And oh, the thought, alas, I am finished. You'll look upon the faces of your hopeless friends, their tear-stained cheeks, their red and swollen eyes, for such will be the depths of their distress. And then you'll see the heralds of the deadly Lord. The memory of former sins will torture you. The screams and din of hell break on your ears. With very terror you will follow yourself. What will you do in such delirium? If like a living fish that twists and writhes, you are so terrified while you are still alive, what need to speak of pain unbearable in hells created by past evils? How can you remain at ease like this when you have done the deeds that lead to contact on your tender baby flesh of boiling liquids and the hell of extreme heat? So testy and thin-skinned, you want results without endeavor. Many are the troubles now in store for you. Though in the grip of death, you are behaving like a god, and suffering, alas, will beat you down. So take advantage of this human boat. Free yourself from sorrow's mighty stream. This vessel will be later hard to find. The time that you have now, you fool, is not for sleep.
Get off your ass.
My first thought for all of you other recovering Catholics out there was John the Baptist. Repent, for the kingdom of God is at hand. Only we're not talking about the kingdom of God in this point, but he's certainly telling us to get our act together and pay attention. Any thoughts on your part before I go about any of this? It's certainly one of the ways that we think about the future. And whether we think about, as I certainly don't believe in past lives and future lives in the sense of lives like we have now. Don't know what happens after we go from here. But this certainly goes about heaven and hell in one sort or another. So, unless you have
What I noticed, John,
yeah,
what I noticed, what came up for me is how much my a certain U.S. president and administration is occupying my mind currently, because when you read lines like "so testy and thin-skinned, you want results without endeavor," it's like my mind just like maybe I'm spending too much time watching and reading and listening to the news, but like a lot of this stuff, sort of what we're reading, just sort of like that's where my mind goes to, like, you stupid you stupid idiot. It's like I'm looking outside of myself and thinking about what others are doing wrong, and that I'm hoping that karma will catch up with them, like, sooner than later, like, rather than looking at myself in some of these readings, I'm projecting. Yeah, anyhow, that's how I have to say.
yeah. easy to do.
It's
Easy to-
exhausting,
Yes. Yeah.
really exhausting.
When that was what I was referring to when I talked about coming to terms with what my anger does to me, not what anger is doing outside of that. So I agree with you. I think, I mean, we need to look at that external too, but we need to not get lost in what's going on out there and fail to look at what's going on inside of us. Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, Mark.
I just want to know when the sudden coming of the Lord of Death. But I mean, I joke about it, and we all joke about it, but it like that kind of not, I don't want to say obsessive thinking, but you know, it's another form of desire, and ultimately it's like samsara living in my head, where I'm like, you know, okay, you know, yeah.
Yeah, I know you're right.
I mean, I guess part of enlightenment is at least just sort of being aware of it, and you know, what are you going to do with it? Having the awareness of this.
I will mention to you one of the things that's been helpful to me recently, and is just as I get upset about things, and believe me, there's plenty of times I do that. One of the first questions I ask myself is this something I can do anything about or not? And if I can't do anything about it, I really have come to understand that I'm just wasting a whole lot of energy chewing on it repeatedly, and instead of looking for how I'm going to address this in myself. I'm not saying that always works, but it's been a very helpful practice for me, and one I would suggest to you is, because you can, as we all can, you know, we can all get really worried about stuff we have no control over. And what good does that worry do? Doesn't do any. It doesn't help anyone, doesn't do any good. And therefore, what am I going to do to address this? And maybe it is to move on to something else at that point. Anything else?
In about 4 billion years, the sun's going to explode.
I'm sorry?
In about 4 billion years, the sun's going to explode. Obliterate our planet. What are we planning on?
That puts things in perspective.
So, what we have from the commentaries here is this. Chapter 7 begins the third and final section of the Way of the Bodhisattva. The first 3 chapters taught us to connect with bodhicitta. The next 3 tell us how to prevent it from diminishing. In this section, Shantideva gives us those things that help bodhicitta to grow and flourish. Peldon begins his comments on chapter 7 with the idea that each paramita, and this is a bit different than the way we've talked about it, depends on the one preceding it. He says that each paramita stands in a relation of cause and effect with the one following it. When we are unattached to things, we can be generous. And the generosity makes it possible to practice discipline. When we acquire discipline, it allows us to cultivate patience. Patience then allows us to develop diligence. The paramita of diligence or enthusiasm brings energy to all that we do. But we also need to remember what Suzuki Roshi said. What we are doing here is so important, we had better not take it too seriously. In the end, we're looking to find a balance that is neither too tight nor too loose, not overly zealous, not overly laid back. One way to do this, as suggested by Trungpa Rinpoche, is to live life as an experiment, being willing to approach things in different ways, because in any case, we have nothing to lose. This gives one a great deal of flexibility. When things didn't work out for him, his attitude was, no big deal. If it's time for something to flourish, it will. If it's not time, it won't. We must not get caught up in hope or fear, instead putting our whole heart in what we do. This is Dogen, Bendowa, the wholehearted way. We should just go forward with curiosity, wondering where this particular experiment will lead. Our open-ended inquisitiveness captures the spirit of enthusiasm, or the other phrase they use is heroic perseverance. He then talks about laziness. He said the opposite of diligence is laziness. Shantideva tells us there are three kinds. The first is the failure to engage in goodness. The second is being unwilling to make an effort. And the third is the despondency of self-contempt. Pelton here describes this as the failure to be saddened by the suffering of samsara. I wondered, as he talked about this, knowing the historical background of it, whether in fact the third kind of laziness is more profound depression. It certainly sounds like a description of it. But I don't know. I didn't ask him. In our everyday life, we seek comfort to escape our uneasiness, hoping to avoid the unpleasantness of life and believing it to be the solution to our discomfort. Instead of appreciating each unique and fleeting day, do we use life's pleasures to numb or distract ourselves? He's not saying that we should not enjoy comfort, but rather we shouldn't become addicted to it or see it as a solution. In the second kind of laziness, we give in to discouragement and lose our will to help ourselves or anyone else. The third kind of laziness is profoundly doubting ourselves in a way that is much more stubborn and bitter than simply losing heart. This is why I thought this might well be more depression as we think about it now. He does remind us that each time we meditate, we train ourselves to open to whatever arises, relaxing into the immediacy of the experience and simply acknowledging both pleasant and unpleasant thoughts without judgment or bias and letting them go. Pima tells us that in this way, we can interrupt the samsaric reaction by taming our mind and patiently refraining from escalating our cliches. Shantideva reminds us that life is short, and whatever is born in the samsaric state must die. He presents death as the grim reaper. He tells us that if we haven't been able to relax into groundlessness in life, death will likely be terrifying. He says that if we have given birth to bodhicitta, death won't make us retreat into self-absorption. Though our fear at that point may be great, it will connect us to all the others who are alone and terrified. He tells us that life is short and there is no time to lose. He tells us not to waste our life sowing seeds of misery. He reminds us that no matter how bad our circumstances are, no matter how sick or disabled we may be, it is still a precious birth if we use these difficulties to awaken our compassion and kindness. So,
Practice like your hair's on fire.
I'm sorry?
Practice like your hair's on fire.
Practice like your hair's on. You know, this is the competing two things I've seen about meditation. I've seen people talk about meditating, you know, and if you're not sweating, you're not doing it right. You know, that you're supposed to be every moment focused and tight. And you know, then you hear the description of Zazen and just sit. Let come what comes. Just let it be. And yet, I mean, both of these were very advanced masters from the past. But I think one was Rinzai, in fact. I think the one that talked about, but by the same token, a different Rinzai master that I read said, I've been sitting now for 40 years and not a lot has happened. But I'll continue to sit, maybe in the next lifetime. I mean, that's the essence of what he said. So there's both of those competing feelings are there. And I don't, I actually would be very interested at Dean's take on that and how he sees those two come together.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's definitely some irony there in the way, and some apparent contradiction. But then Zen's full of that. So,
Yeah. I feel like I would be interested to know if the person who said that means like in terms of like external events, in terms of internal events, because I feel like how much happens when you just sit is kind of determined by how much is going on inside of you. So like some people are kind of like implicitly just like more present and chill. For me personally, I have like Zen has really intensely disrupted my like constant like addiction to my own mind. So I can say I've sat for a year and a lot has changed.
yeah, well, yes.
Like people have like different natures and like predilections and experiences, right? So like you could do the same activity and have completely variable results.
Yeah.
What you got out of it.
Yes. Certainly sitting has changed over the 25 years that I've done it. And it's just, but has it changed? Well, yes and no. I mean, there are things that are absolutely like the day I started.
Yeah.
And including since we've been talking about it, including those times when you can sit down and you can't get the anger out of your head.
Yeah.
So, but that's just part of the process. I think, yeah, we are good on time here. Any other thoughts from people? Anybody have anything, any other observations or? Okay, well, let's chant out and we'll call it a day. Our intention equally penetrate every being and place with the true merit of Buddha's way. Beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Delusion, exhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. Buddha's way is unexhaustible. I vow to become it. It's a very interesting thing that happens. I know all these chants, but when I sit in this, somehow I can't remember how to start them. Okay.
Just hit the red.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to go out of Chrome, which will do the same thing.